Although unemployment has fallen slightly, but it is still relatively high according to world standards. Compared to a year ago, total employment increased by 1.5 million people. Sectors that recorded job increases were the formal and informal, with 235,000 and 6,000 jobs respectively. Losses were observed in private households and agricultural sectors in Q3 of this year.
Remember, we lost some 2 million jobs before COVID. And many of those had not been recovered. So it is still very much a stepwise approach to try and return some of those jobs. We know, for example, in the transport sector, a lot of people are starting to go back to work. People are starting to go back to their businesses. So you will see a slight uptick. I guess it's, in some ways, people will say it's surprising, but not everybody is going to be working from home. So the transport sector is starting to grow because people are actually sort of, engaging again.
Recruitment agency Inspired says the labor market and hiring trends have changed and been made even worse by the pandemic.
Current trends in the market is you'll see that there's certain industries that are booming at the moment. For example, IT is booming, sales is booming. So we do see that at the moment. But we also see a little bit of a change in the employment and the way it's done. For example, COVID has changed a lot of things. You'll see that COVID has shifted our perspective in terms of looking at the way we work and the well-being and putting a perspective there. So you'll see that there's been a change there. You'll also notice things like in Gauteng, you'll find a lot of employment activity and recruitment activity happening in Gauteng. There's a little bit less in maybe Durban and outskirts or Cape Town areas, so you'll see that.
According to economic analysis from Nedbank, the outlook for the job market remains uncertain given the prevailing headwinds. The bank highlights adverse labor market conditions, including frequent labor strikes, high wage demands, high input costs and power shortages that continue to discourage private sector investment and, as a result, constrain job creation. The Recruitment Agency of South Africa agrees with the sentiment, saying while there are a lot of inquiries from job seekers, but it is relatively subdued on the employer side.
Just due to the way the economy currently is, for example, I'm not going to open up a manufacturing firm if I know 6 hours out of 12 hours I cannot manufacture. It would not be worth my while, if you know what I mean. So therefore, I cannot create the employment. And that is, a big thing in this country is how do people get started, because our economy is the way it is and all the extras, load shedding, etc., etc. So from an employer side, it's rather difficult. From a candidate side, it's rather difficult.
And as the year draws to a close, recruiters share winning tips for job seekers for the coming year.
Your CV is your first impression of you. It's the first impression that a recruiter gets and a possible employee gets from you. So spend some time in it. Throw yourself into it. Little tips of the trade as well. If you want to put a photo, you can. Just be mindful of it being more professional based as well. If you want to present your experience as well, make sure that you present your most recent experience and present it in a chronological order from the recent. If you want to include things like references, you're welcome to do so, but we rather say leave it off and put, say, for example, upon request. And then if the recruiter or the agency or the employee asks for it, then you can give it to them like that. And other things like get a second set of eyes. Let someone else read your work.
Google Jobs is really, really a nice platform to work on. They mainly deal with recruitment agents and not third-party websites. So, what you can do as well is there is a lot of jobs that are going on LinkedIn, Facebook, all those sort of social media platforms, which is quite nice because it's also direct with the recruiter and it also tells you when and where it was posted.
While this uptick is somewhat encouraging, economists at FNB say GDP growth sustainably above 3% will be needed to make a meaningful impact on employment creation. In the meantime, economic growth is expected to remain below 2% through to 2025. Diabo Seto, SABC News, Johannesburg.